Alrighty, it's funny to say this, considering that there is still a lot of news, but it feels like a slow news day. And I haven't felt that way in a long time. Certainly not since this war started, but, I say it's a slow news day, yet Zelensky, or Elensky, as, I think I'm picking up on Alex Christoforou. I do think it's probably more politically correct for us to say Elensky, and I hear the name Elensky now more than Zelensky. So it's almost, starting to shift in my head. But Elensky, the supreme leader, the supreme figurehead of Ukraine, not the Republic of Ukraine or the state of Ukraine, just Ukraine. I always found that odd how they do that with their government. Hungary now does the same thing too, but I don't want to get off on a tangent. Has announced that they got him. Don't worry, guys, we got him. We captured the leader of the opposition. This great democracy, Ukraine, I just can't get over this. They're so excited and so proud that they captured the leader of the opposition. And not only that, they're holding him as a prisoner of war and is offering him up to Russia to exchange for other POWs. And it's a sad situation if you're this guy Viktor Medvedchuk. To be hauled in front of cameras, and it is supposed to be a war crime to film POWs, but it seems like both sides are doing that now, because I'm seeing lots and lots of videos of POWs this whole time in the war, lots of POWs being humiliated. And so Medvedchuk is just the latest one in that long line. Even though he was not a combatant, he was not fighting in this war, he just disappeared as soon as the war started. We were told, he probably escaped to Russia because he knew that the SPU goons would come after him. The Elensky thugs or the Azov types or somebody. There was somebody in Ukraine who would want to take down the leader of the opposition. And so they said, he probably fled to Russia, which seemed fair enough. The guy was under house arrest. That's what I would have tried to do if I were in his position, because remember, the great democracy, Ukraine, the very free and democratic country where, elections matter, had already had the leader of the opposition under house arrest. Not that would impair democracy at all. Not that would impair his ability to campaign, in upcoming elections, being under house arrest on trumped-up treason charges. It's a very democratic thing to do, to charge your political opponents with treason, for opposing your politics, and then locking them up in their house so that they can't go out and, hold campaign rallies. So yeah, if I were already in Viktor Medvedchuk's position, I would have gotten the hell out of there and fled to Russia if I could. But at this point, I don't think that happened. It doesn't seem plausible to me at all. I completely agree with Alex Christoforou on this. In fact, before I heard him say it, I already thought this was the case, but I have to give him credit because his video came out sooner than mine. This story that Zelensky put out, saying, we just caught him. Our guys got him. The SBU, we're just so smart. He's been on the run this whole time, and now we got him. That's total BS. They must have had Medvedchuk since the very beginning. Because if he was on the run, he wouldn't still be in Ukraine. The guy would have gotten the hell out of there. He would have flagged down the first Russian soldier he could find and said, "Take me away." And they would have said, "Okay, sir, we'll take you back to Moscow." Or, at least to Belgorod, or one of those, someplace in Russia. Because Medvedchuk is, he's probably a valuable asset to Russia, not just because, he seems to be an actual personal friend of Putin. I think that, I always forget if it's one way or the other. I believe it's Putin is the godfather of Medvedchuk's child. I couldn't remember before if it was Medvedchuk was the godfather of Putin's child, but actually Putin's children, I think, are way too old for Medvedchuk to have been their godfather. But who knows? Either way, these guys have a personal relationship, and so, he would have been safe in Russia. And considering he's already the leader of the Ukrainian opposition, and he's not a Putin puppet, but a friend of Putin, definitely, he would make an ideal leader for the new pro-Russian Ukrainian state. And that's why, it would have been important for the SBU or the Ukrainian military to capture him. And so I think what probably happened was as soon as the war started, they did capture him. Nobody knew where he went. People just assumed, oh, he fled to Russia. Russia wasn't going to say whether they had him one way or the other, because if they did have him, why would Russia, admit that? They had no reason to. So the Russians didn't say anything. We all just assumed he was in Russia for the most part. And then now, Zelensky wheels him out and says, "Look at this guy. We just caught him, and he was wearing." He was wearing a military uniform of all things, trying to pose as a soldier. What a terrible guy, that's stolen valor. No, it's not stolen valor. The reason why the guy's wearing military clothes is because he was captured by the military. He's been being held in a dungeon somewhere, and all they've got around are military uniforms, and so those are the only clothes that are around, so that's what he's wearing. It's not that he was dressed up trying to pretend to be a soldier in, a soldier fleeing battle. That's not a good disguise. You want to disguise as yourself as a civilian if you're trying to flee a war. And so, no, he wasn't just captured. They had him this whole time. That's absolutely what's going on. And they're wheeling him out now. To me, it seemed very suspicious that they unveiled Medvedchuk within an hour or two, it seemed like. Maybe it was more than that. Of these 1,000 or so Ukrainian Marines surrendering in Mariupol. So I thought, well, maybe they're going to try and exchange those 1,000 Marines for Medvedchuk, because Medvedchuk's such a high-profile guy. He's such a high-profile hostage, which, by the way, this is not normally how POW exchanges work. These are normally people that you capture in battle. You don't just go and take people hostage and then try and trade them for POWs. That's typically, known as terrorism. But I guess not when it's done by a democracy, because democracies can't commit acts of terror. Only autocracies, like Iran, which doesn't have elections, or Russia, which also doesn't have elections. Well, they do, but those are fake elections, unlike the elections in Ukraine, which are totally real and never interfered with by people domestically or in foreign countries like the United States. So, at the end of the day, though, I think that CRP, Coach Red Pill, Gonzalo Lira, whatever you want to call him, at the start of this war, he was called Coach Red Pill. And very quickly he transitioned to just calling himself Gonzalo Lira. So, I don't know. Whatever. Gonzalo, I think, was the first person to say that the Medvedchuk thing is about who or whatever is being hidden in Azovstal. Because something I don't think I've talked about on this channel, because frankly there's just not enough information, and I don't want to speculate that much. But it appears that the Ukrainians have been trying to get someone or something out of Azovstal, which is the steel mill or giant complex of steel production that is on the Sea of Azov in Mariupol, that I believe was built by Stalin. It seems to be really old steelworks. And the Azov guys, and I guess like 5,000 Ukrainian troops. I didn't realize there were that many that they could fit in there. That's a big place. If they've got that many guys hiding out there, 1,000 of them just surrendered. So I guess that means there are about 4,000 left. The Ukrainians have been trying to fly helicopters into there. Total suicide missions, flying a helicopter, over the Russians and into Azovstal, trying to rescue somebody. And of course, the helicopters get blown up when they take off. And then they had a cargo ship that was just charging, that was just going to run the Russian blockade and charge. And I guess run aground and somehow rescue somebody in Azovstal. It's just nuts. So there's obviously something there that they want to get out. And they're willing to take incredible risks and do really obviously stupid moves which expose that. And that just seems to me to be an act of desperation, not stupidity. I don't think that's stupid. I don't think the Ukrainians are stupid. And so, Gonzalo's speculation, which I think is probably the most reasonable at this point, is that they're going to try and use Medvedchuk to get whoever or whatever is in Azovstal back. And they've probably been saving Medvedchuk, trying to keep him somewhat healthy, because he is their trump card. He's their biggest negotiating chip. Because they probably know Medvedchuk is going to lead the new, post-Ukrainian state, the new Russian-friendly Ukraine. That is his role in this, or at least he's the most likely candidate. And so they're betting that he's valuable enough to the Russians and considering his personal relationship with Putin, that they can get something out of the Russians by offering him up. Or they could just waste him out of spite, and which they probably will do at the end of the war if they don't trade him away for something. At the end of the war, they'll probably just kill Medvedchuk, so that he can't go on and become the new administrator of Russian Ukraine. So who knows? Hopefully we find out soon enough. I don't know how long this will drag on. I mean, typically I would think a guy like Medvedchuk, his chances of thriving in Ukrainian captivity probably not so great in the long term, especially if it gets down to the wire. I think that the Russians, if they do want to preserve Medvedchuk, need to act as quickly as possible, because the more desperate the Ukrainians get, and the less likely they feel like they have much to gain from trading him away, they'll probably just waste him. And I use that term specifically because, I mean, it was almost sort of subconscious, because that's the term that, in stupid Hollywood movies that you hear used by hostage takers. They say, if you don't give in to my demands, I'm going to start wasting hostages. And and that's just what my mind instantly went to, and it just occurred to me. That's why I was using that term, because I've never used the term wasted to kill somebody in my life. I'd say whacked, or knocked off, or just killed. But I mean, just imagine, what villains the Russians would look like if they captured, Zelensky or some other, prominent Ukrainian politician, and just held them for ransom. And, and just said, hey, give us some POWs and we'll give you your leader back. Although I guess they wouldn't do that with a leader. I mean, if you capture the leader in a war, you win. That's typically how that goes. That's how it went in the Franco-Prussian War. Napoleon III was dumb enough to get himself captured by the Prussians, and therefore the Second Empire ceased to exist. But Medvedchuk is not a leader yet. It's just understood that he might be a leader. So I guess this is like capturing a prince. And that is the sort of thing that you did used to see, in the days of monarchies, taking members of, rival royal families hostage and trying to extract concessions. But that's not something that you associate with noble Western European democracy. Especially considering, I mean, Medvedchuk is a Ukrainian. This whole idea of, hey, we're all in this together. You would think that they would try and have some unity, because if Medvedchuk is, the most prominent opposition leader in the Ukrainian government, or outside, in Ukrainian politics, you would think that a good portion of the country, which, we're told all of Ukraine is under attack by Russia. There's nobody in, Russia who supports Ukraine. You would think that maybe the supporters of Mr. Medvedchuk would be a little unnerved by the government taking him hostage, because they would think, gee, what would the government do to me then? Because we're told that, all of Ukraine opposes Russia, and that would, seemingly include Mr. Medvedchuk's supporters. So it's just, I don't know how you do this, if you're in the position of the Ukrainian government. I mean, you just not. I guess it's like, the United States, but even worse, to where they just don't recognize supporters of the opposition as truly, fellow countrymen. People in the United States don't associate. That's how divided countries work. They think of their own tribe really as the true nation. It's like this concept of the real America that I've talked about so much. Who's the real America? And I argue there is no real America. Everybody just thinks they're the real Americans, and that, whatever their vision is the real America. It's probably something very true in Ukraine. You have this portion of the population that does not view the supporters of people like Medvedchuk as Ukrainians at all. And I think Zelensky himself has even said in the past, I can't remember, I'd have to find the exact quote, but it was something to the extent of, hey, because there was all this talk about, you should treat ethnic Russians, like they're equal citizens and not like second-class citizens. And he made some comment, like, hey, if you consider yourself to be a Russian, get the hell out of Ukraine, or something like that. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I don't know. I shouldn't quote somebody unless I have it in front of me. Because if I can't find it, then I can just look like a jerk who's making stuff up, and I don't want to be that way. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.